Today we are embarking on a new manga journey together as we pick up one of the newest manga in Shonen Jump, Yuki Kawaguchi's The Hunter Guild Red Hood. Now, I don't know too much about Red Hood myself, but I've seen a lot of people talking about it, and when I saw the art style and learned about this monster hunting fairy tale world within it, I knew it was something I wanted to cover on my channel. So, without further ado, let's get into the first chapter, The Red Huntress. The story starts out with a woman in a red hood asking a boy if he's ever seen a dragon. He's a little bit confused and points out that dragons only existed in fairy tales, so of course he hasn't. However, the woman corrects him, saying that long ago, dragons were in fact real. However, they were exterminated 500 years ago. So right off the bat, I think this is a pretty cool introduction to her character, whoever she might be. And I'm really liking this art style. It kind of reminds me of like a simplified Horikoshi from My Hero Academia, especially in things like the hair, the eyes, and the face in general. However, the art style seems like something you might see more like in a Grimm fairy tale book, which I really like. Something I did notice that was a little bit strange in the first few colored pages though, is that between the three panels that we see this woman's hair in, they're different colors each time. First a pinky white color, then blonde, and then a teal yellow. It's kind of interesting visually, but we don't really have to worry too much about the color going forward as the story proper begins, and we cut to the Kasuka hamlet, where a werewolf has apparently been taking people and only leaving a pile of clothes and a pool of blood behind. The boy from the opening emerges and tells everyone not to worry because they have him, as he holds out his rifle and pulls up a fawn that he hunted this morning. The more I see this art, the more I think it looks like My Hero. I mentioned this, but especially in the faces and the line work, and honestly the variations to that style is really working for me. It seems the villagers are less impressed with the boy than I am though, as while they know how talented he is, he's still a child. The boy calls out that yeah, he's a child now, but when he grows up, he'll be more than strong enough to take on werewolves. Something met with the question, well, by the time you grow up, do you think there's even going to be anyone left, leaving the boy looking totally helpless. We jump over to this old, raggedy-looking book with runic letters. It looks like some kind of monster encyclopedia maybe, and it explains all about werewolves and says that while their origin is unclear, it's always true that once they taste human flesh, they will continue to hunt humans for the rest of their lives. Behind the boy, a massive man with a bushy beard and a raccoon hat calls out to everyone while holding an axe in one hand and a deer much bigger than the one the boy caught on his other shoulder. He's apparently the mayor, and the boy, whose name we learn is Valo, which I'm probably pronouncing wrong. If I am, let me know in the comments, asks him to teach him more ways to fight so that he can help with the werewolves in the future. But the mayor has already decided that there just aren't enough able-bodied adults left to protect the town, so he has been forced to call the Hunters Guild, something which the villagers seem less than excited about. The Hunters Guild is this mercenary group that was apparently founded by this legendary person called the Red Hood and specializes in hunting monsters. They're famous for two things, with the first of which being that they always get shit done, and the second of which being that they will always charge a boatload of money. However, the mayor just puts on this big grin and says not to worry about the cost because he already sold his home and his sheep to pay it off, promising that he got a really strong hunter while asking if anyone has room for him to stay. The other villagers kind of call him dumb for selling all of his belongings, but he presses that if the hamlet is destroyed, then there's no reason to have sheep or a home here anyways. And I just really like this guy, he seems super genuine. A week passes and the hunter finally arrives, and she is absolutely tiny. Kind of a slap in the face to Valo, who was told that he was too small to help. Her name is Grimm, obviously named after the brothers Grimm, which is absolute quality. The mayor questions her about her being a young girl, and the other villagers, except for Valo, erupt into chaos and fear before Grimm cuts them off and insists on half of the payment up front, then explaining that they could have a different hunter, but all of the cancellation and other fees would basically cost them an arm and a leg, and it's not something that this village can afford. Valo calls her out, saying that the rumors of the Hunters Guild being greedy and money grubbers were absolutely true. However, Grimm commits a verbal murder on this man, saying that they aren't trying to be heroes. Florists sell flowers for money, carpenters build houses for money, and she is no different. If she's going to be working, and especially if she's going to be risking her life, She absolutely will be getting paid, and if no one in this hamlet is going to hunt the werewolf themselves, then her getting paid needs to happen right now. Absolutely love this mentality for the story. The idea of not trying to be a hero while doing somewhat heroic acts is fairly rare in shonen, and it's a trope that I tend to really gravitate towards, so I'm probably gonna like Grimm quite a lot. Velo literally has to be pulled away by the mayor as an old woman approaches and asks Grimm to not take what he said too much to heart, as she explains that his parents were killed by werewolves, so he's pretty passionate about the situation. I guess the mayor was the one that actually killed the werewolves all those years ago, and seeing him so selfishly give everything he owns to protect the hamlet, only for Grimm to arrive and only be focused on the money, just set Velo off. Once things cool down, Velo is asked to show Grimm to a mountain hut. However, on their journey towards it, she stops him and instead requests to be shown a way back to the hamlet in secret. She explains that despite the old woman saying that the werewolf descends the mountain, she's confident that it's actually living in the town and disguising itself as a human. Their conversation is cut short though, as this sound of the mayor's scream pierces through the forest. Grimm insists that Velo go back to the hamlet, but he tells her that there's a ton of blind cliffs and dangers in the forest, and she's going to need a guide there, so she begrudgingly allows him to tag along. They start their dash through the forest, and Velo presses that there's no one bad in the hamlet. He was raised by them all collectively, and he knows them better than anyone, so this man-eating werewolf couldn't possibly be one of them. But Grimm just asks if he feels bad for eating plants or animals, and explains that werewolves aren't bad for eating people. It's just them fulfilling the circle of life. Having to eat to survive does not intrinsically make someone good or evil, even if it involves them eating a person. What actually differentiates good from evil is your personality. As they approach, Grimm reminds him that when they find the werewolf, he shouldn't expect any heroes or justice because there won't be any there. Something that they can't really dwell on right now, as they find the mayor's axe and a trail of blood leading to the hut that they were supposed to go towards originally. Grimm pulls out the Hunter's 616 Tools Hound Muzzle, which is a rifle with a hound's muzzle, fittingly enough. It can analyze the smell of blood and bones and can tell what they came from. It seems like the mayor fought a werewolf and was brought inside of the hut. They burst down the doors and find a pile of bones where the werewolf is nowhere in sight. What is there, though, is the old woman from earlier, and she explains that the mayor was the werewolf, saying that he sensed them coming and escaped through the window, and that them showing up saved her life. Velo starts panicking and starts to question everything, very quickly noticing that the window is still filled with cobwebs, and that it's too small for the mayor to fit through. He turns to the old woman and demands that she tell him the truth, as she lunges towards him and begins transforming into a werewolf. Admittedly, not like any werewolf I've ever seen in design. But Grimm manages to push Velo out of the way, and now she's no longer the child we saw before, but she's an adult, and good God, wait, why is she perfect now? Love this design so much. Really fulfilling the idea of this badass Red Riding Hood. She says that she'll explain the transformation later, and that the bones they found probably belonged to the mayor. The old woman finishes transforming, and honestly, she kinda looks a bit goofy and reminds me of a monstrous Courage the Cowardly Dog, but Grimm pulls out another hunter's tool, this time the pocket chimney, which creates a smokescreen and an opening for them to escape. She tells Velo that the wolf was bigger than she expected and she's going to need some help, saying that he's the only one who's around that can do so. But he is doubting himself, saying he's just a kid, and even his hero the mayor couldn't stop this monster. But Grimm does not let him pity himself for a single moment, asking if he wants to be eaten, and if not, she demands that he fights. She says that all prey has a way to defend itself. Some animals have hooves to run fast, while others have thick hides or even horns. But humanity's horn is its mind. This is how they were going to stay alive, and it's his mind which let them realize that the werewolf hadn't left yet and kept them both alive to this point. So now is the time for him to stand, and he can no longer just wait to grow up. Before Velo can get his nerve though, the wolf appears once again and gives a full Red Riding Hood speech. Grimm is captured, and as she calls out to Velo to run, she is swallowed whole. The werewolf starts listing off all of the villagers who she's going to kill, in what order, and what she's going to do with their insides. But she says that she's going to tie Velo up and force him to watch as she devours them all one by one, because she can't stand children like him. She goes on to berate the mayor, calling him a fool and saying that he had made a pointless sacrifice. But as the wolf begins to open her mouth to eat Velo, he reaches for his musket, pries open the monster's mouth, and fires through the roof of it. He remembers back to the mayor's wish to protect the hamlet, and vows to uphold this and protect everyone in his stead with all of his strength. Velo grabs the mayor's axe, leaps into the air, and slices through the wolf in one swing, even managing to pull out Grimm from inside the beast's stomach. As she emerges, she asks the question, how could a child this weak do so much damage? Then noticing his axe and hinting that it's probably a hunter's tool itself. She grabs Velo and uses a grappling hook to pull them both away as the wolf reaches inside of herself and pulls out a bomb that had been tied to her insides. It erupts in a massive explosion, and our heroes barely manage to walk away. We cut to Grimm and Velo standing above a makeshift grave for the mayor as Velo asks if the mayor is able to see that the hamlet is safe, as he thanks him for helping him find the strength to move on. He says that he will no longer run away, and that he learned this lesson from both the mayor and Grimm herself. And this leads us to the opening color spread, as she asks him if he has ever seen a dragon before. However, this time it continues. She says 500 years ago they killed the last dragon, and so they were forgotten and locked away in the world of books. No one has had to live in fear of them anymore. Werewolves, witches, vampires, until the day when they too are nothing but myth, hunters will fight on. And as Grimm looks down at Velo, she sees his determined face looking back at her, and she asks if he wants to become a hunter himself. And with that, the first chapter of Red Hood comes to a close, and so begins this story of two hunters. So opening thoughts on this manga, I really like it. It's really fast paced, which was nice. Cool characters so far. I think each of the characters that they wanted you to feel some kind of connection to really pulled through. Grimm is this crazy badass, which I love. Velo is this kid with a lot to prove and trying to do his best despite the monsters in his path. As I said at the beginning, I really like this kind of Grimm Brothers fairy tale art style that the story has as well, while also having elements that are definitely very similar to My Hero Academia, which, I mean, I like My Hero Academia's manga art, so that's perfect. Most of all, I'm just really excited to see where the story goes from here. Are we going to go to the Hunters Guild, see more tools, and what kind of people and places will we visit in this story? What kind of other fairy tales will be brought to life through this story? There's a ton of questions, which I think is very good for a first chapter of a manga. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below though, and if you enjoyed this video, remember to leave a like and subscribe for more content in the future. You can also consider supporting me over on Patreon, and on that note, a big thank you goes out to our current patrons with our Dai Yokai, Bloodwolfmon, Iffy Babes, Ikerochu, and Jacob Wiley, our Yokai, Amelia Hellman, NL Cruz, Janice Not Janice, Joker Rose, Lucifina Akuma, and our Hanyo, Anthony Hogan, Brittany K, Kiwi Dog, Love the Kiwi, Michael Grayco, Mochi Num Num, Morrigan E. Wolf, Negakitty, Randy Moseyman, Samantha Olsen, Savage Camel, Simon Electric, Suki Neko, and Ziv. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, remember to stay excellent.